My name is Diane R. Brinker. I'm 29 years old, and the scent of seared scallops and garlic herb butter should have marked the beginning of a celebration. Instead, it became the smell I would forever associate with the night my 3-year relationship ended. I had spent the entire afternoon preparing our anniversary dinner. I bought the expensive wine Caleb liked, the one with the gold label he always photographed before opening. I set the table, dimmed the lights, and wore the dark blue dress he once said made my eyes look brighter. But Caleb barely noticed. He sat across from me, pushing a scallop around his plate while his phone buzzed beside his wine glass. His body was there. His attention was not. For the past 3 months, Marissa had been the invisible third person in our relationship. She worked with Caleb. At first, he mentioned her casually. Then her name appeared in every story. Her jokes, her ideas, her opinions about music, travel, and relationships. Eventually, Caleb stopped mentioning her. That was when I became certain she mattered. His phone buzzed again. His eyes shifted toward the screen. "Caleb," I said. He sighed. "What?" "We need to talk." "About what?" "The food is great." "It isn't about the food." He placed his fork down with visible irritation. "Then what is it?" "You, me, and whoever keeps messaging you during our anniversary dinner." His expression hardened. "You're being dramatic." "I'm talking about Marissa." The name stayed between us. For a second, Caleb looked surprised. Then he leaned back and lifted his wine glass. "You've been watching too many bad movies." "Tell me I'm wrong." He took a deliberate sip. Then he smiled. "Fine. You want the truth?" "Yes. Marissa and I have been seeing each other." The sentence struck harder than I expected. 3 years of shared mornings, hospital visits, rent payments, holidays, and promises were reduced to one casual confession. "How long?" "A few months." "You've been sleeping with her?" Caleb rolled his eyes. "Don't make it sound so ugly." "What should I call it?" "It's fun. She's exciting. It's different." "Different from me?" "You're stable, Diane. Reliable. You're my foundation." The words sounded like compliments, but his smile made them cruel. "A foundation is important," he continued, "but it isn't the exciting part of the house. Marissa is the view from the top." I stared at him. He seemed encouraged by my silence. "Think of it this way," he said with a light laugh. "You're my backup plan." I thought I had misheard him. "Your backup plan?" "If things with Marissa don't work out, I know you'll still be here. You're dependable." He leaned forward as though explaining something reasonable to a child. "It's actually a compliment. I still see you in my future, just in a different role." My fingers tightened around my fork. Part of me wanted to scream. Instead, something inside me went completely still. I placed the fork on the table. The small metallic sound seemed louder than his confession. Then I stood. Caleb frowned. "Where are you going?" I walked into the bedroom and pulled a duffel bag from the closet. I packed clothes, shoes, toiletries, and my laptop, with mechanical precision. Caleb appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing?" I zipped the bag. "Leaving." "Oh, come on. Don't act childish." I opened the bathroom cabinet and took my toothbrush. "It's just sex," he said. "Marissa doesn't mean anything." "You just called her the view from the top." I was trying to explain. "You explained perfectly." On the dresser sat the silver promise ring I had given him on our first anniversary. He had stopped wearing it months ago, claiming it irritated his hand at the gym. I placed it in the center of the dresser. Caleb scoffed. "This is why I need someone like Marissa. You're too sensitive." I looked at him. For the first time, I saw no trace of the man I had loved. Only entitlement. "You'll be back within a week," he said. "You'll realize no one else will tolerate you." I lifted the duffel onto my shoulder. "There is no backup plan." His expression flickered. "What?" "The system has been permanently deleted." I walked past him. He followed me into the hallway. "You're making a huge mistake, Diane." I stepped into the elevator. "You're nothing without me." The doors began to close. Before they sealed, I pulled out my phone. I blocked his number. Then Instagram, Facebook. Every entrance into my life disappeared before I reached the lobby. When I stepped outside, the cold air filled my lungs. I had no apartment waiting for me, and no clear plan beyond Olivia's couch. But for the first time in months, I was no longer standing still while someone decided whether I was worth choosing. The backup plan was gone, and I was finally choosing myself. The first week after I left, Caleb passed in a blur of numb routines. Olivia's couch became my temporary home. It smelled faintly of laundry detergent, old books, and the lavender candle she burned every night. It was not comfortable, but it was safe. I went to work each morning and answered emails as though nothing had happened. I joined meetings, reviewed reports, and smiled when coworkers asked how my anniversary had gone. Quiet, I told them. That was true in a way they could never understand. The silence after a breakup is different from ordinary quiet. It has weight. It follows you into the shower, sits beside you at breakfast, and wakes you in the middle of the night. For 3 years, Caleb had been part of every routine. I would see something funny and instinctively reach for my phone before remembering his number was blocked. I would hear a song he liked and feel the old reflex to send it to him. Each time, I stopped myself. Not because I was strong, because I remembered his smile when he called me his backup plan. That memory was stronger than loneliness. Olivia never pressured me to talk. She simply made space. On the 4th night, she placed 2 mugs of tea on the coffee table and sat beside me. "You gave up a lot for him," she said. I stared into the steam. "What do you mean?" "You turned down that remote position near the coast because he didn't want to leave the city." I had almost forgotten. The offer had been everything I wanted: better pay, flexible hours, and the chance to live somewhere quieter. Caleb called it selfish. He said his career was finally gaining momentum and asked how I could expect him to start over just because I had some fantasy about working near the ocean, so I declined. Olivia continued. "You stopped seeing half your college friends because he thought they were immature." "They could be. So could Caleb." That almost made me smile. She leaned closer. "You kept shrinking your life so he would feel bigger." The words stayed with me. That night, I lay awake and mentally counted every sacrifice I had once labeled love. The job, the friends, the weekend classes I abandoned because Caleb complained they took too much time, the savings I used to help him pay his debts. I had spent years making withdrawals from myself. Caleb had called that dependable. By the 2nd week, the silence began to change. It no longer felt like a hole. It felt like an empty room, a room I could finally choose how to fill. I started running again. At first, I could barely finish 2 miles without stopping. My lungs burned, my legs ached, and every breath felt sharp. But it was honest pain. It did not whisper one thing while meaning another. I downloaded the language learning application Caleb had once called a waste of time. I began practicing during my commute. I also answered messages from old friends. The first time I met them for drinks, I sat quietly for nearly an hour, afraid I no longer knew how to belong without Caleb beside me. Then Olivia's brother told a ridiculous story about setting off a hotel fire alarm while reheating pizza. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. The sound startled me. For months, laughter around Caleb had felt measured. I always worried that being too loud, too opinionated, or too independent would irritate him. That night, I laughed without checking his face. It felt like rebellion. 1 month after the anniversary dinner, I signed a lease for a new apartment. It was a modern 1-bedroom in a building with a concierge and controlled elevator access. The rent was higher, but I could afford it. The first evening, I stood in the center of the empty living room and listened to the city beyond the windows. No perfume, no buzzing phone, no ghost at the dinner table. Only space. I was still unpacking when Olivia sent a message. "Are you emotionally stable enough for an update?" I stared at the screen. "Probably not, but go ahead." Her typing indicator appeared. Caleb moved in with Marissa almost immediately. I felt a faint flicker in my chest. Not heartbreak, curiosity. "Where?" "Her supposed luxury apartment is actually a studio above someone's garage." I sat on the floor beside an open box. Olivia continued. Apparently, things were intense for about 2 weeks. Of course they were. Then Marissa started disappearing for days. Caleb found dating apps on her phone. She told him she never promised a serious relationship. I read the message twice. The woman he called his penthouse view had apparently never intended to let him stay. She kicked him out last weekend, Olivia wrote, said he was too clingy and needed to give her space. I leaned my head against the wall. There was a time when hearing Caleb was homeless would have activated every instinct in me. I would have called, offered the spare key, asked whether he had eaten. Instead, I felt a deep and unfamiliar stillness. Where is he now? I asked. Couch surfing, mostly with coworkers. A final message arrived. He asked about you. My fingers hovered over the screen. What did you say? Nothing. I told him I wasn't getting involved. I typed one word. Okay. It was not sympathy. It was not satisfaction. It was simply an acknowledgement that the information had been received. Caleb's crisis no longer required my participation. 2 days later, an unknown number texted me. Diane, it's Caleb. I made a terrible mistake. Please talk to me. I blocked it immediately. 1 week passed. Then my work phone rang. I recognized his voice the moment the voicemail began. Diane, please. Marissa used me. She threw me out. You were right about everything. His breathing sounded uneven. I'm alone. I need you. Please call me back. I listened until the end. There had been a time when those words would have shattered every boundary I had. Now they only confirmed what I already knew. He did not miss me. He missed access. He missed certainty. He missed the woman he believed would remain permanently available while he tested whether someone more exciting might want him. I deleted the voicemail. Then I emptied the deleted folder. The next attempt came through his best friend, Jordan. Diane, I know things ended badly, he began. But Caleb is in a dark place. I'm sorry to hear that. He learned his lesson. That is good. Could you talk to him? Just once? No. Jordan sighed. He says you were the only person who really understood him. He should have remembered that before replacing me. He made a mistake. He made a decision. That's cold. No. It is accurate. I ended the call. For the first time, I understood that people called a woman cold whenever she stopped making herself useful to someone who had hurt her. I placed my phone on the counter and continued unpacking. That evening, I hung the final framed photograph on the wall. It was not a picture of Caleb. It was a photograph I had taken years earlier of the ocean at sunrise. The life I once postponed for him was still waiting. And this time, I intended to reach it on my own terms. The first time Caleb appeared outside my building, I almost walked past him without recognizing him. He stood beneath the awning near the entrance, hands buried in the pockets of a wrinkled jacket. His hair looked unwashed, and dark circles had settled beneath his eyes. He no longer resembled the man who had leaned back at our anniversary dinner and calmly explained why I should feel honored to remain his backup plan. Diane. I stopped several feet away. What are you doing here? I needed to see you. How did you find my address? He hesitated. Jordan mentioned the neighborhood. That wasn't my question. Caleb stepped forward. I've been trying to reach you. I know. You blocked everything. Yes. He looked toward the glass lobby doors. Can we go upstairs and talk? No. His jaw tightened. I'm not asking to move back in. You were never invited here. I just want 5 minutes. You've already taken more than that. A couple exited the building behind me. Caleb moved aside, forcing a polite smile until they passed. Then his expression collapsed again. Marissa used me. I heard. She lied about everything. The apartment, the business opportunities, wanting a future. That sounds difficult. His eyes sharpened. That's all you have to say? What response were you expecting? I don't know. Something human. I almost laughed. Human like telling your girlfriend she is a backup plan during an anniversary dinner? That was cruel. I know that now. You knew it then. I was angry. You were amused. The distinction landed. Caleb looked down. I made a mistake. You made a series of decisions. Why do you keep saying that? Because calling it one mistake lets you pretend it happened accidentally. His face reddened. I came here to apologize. No. You came here because Marissa discarded you and you want to know whether your emergency option still works. That isn't fair. It is exactly what you told me. He stepped closer. You don't understand what I've been through. I understand more than you think. No, you don't. I've been sleeping on couches. People at work know what happened. Marissa told everyone I became obsessive. Did you? His mouth opened, then closed. She kept disappearing. That was her choice. She was seeing other people. So were you when we were together. His eyes flashed. It wasn't the same. It rarely is when it happens to you. For a second, neither of us spoke. The street noise filled the space between us. Finally, Caleb's voice softened. I miss you. I watched him carefully. What do you miss? You. What about me? He frowned. Everything. Be specific. He stared as though the question were unfair. I miss coming home to you. I miss dinner. I miss knowing someone cared where I was. There it was. Routine. Comfort. Service. You miss being taken care of. That's not what I said. It is what you described. Caleb ran a hand through his hair. You always twist everything. No. I stopped twisting it into something easier for you. His expression hardened. You think you're better than me now because you have this apartment? This apartment has nothing to do with you. You wouldn't even be here if we hadn't broken up. That is true. He seemed encouraged. Then I continued. And that may be the only useful thing you ever gave me. His face went pale. You're cold. I'm finished. He stared at me for several seconds, then looked toward the lobby. Just let me inside. It's freezing. No. Diane, come on. You need to leave. His voice rose. You were supposed to be there for me. I felt something inside me settle. That role ended the night you told me I was disposable. I didn't mean it like that. You meant it exactly like that. The concierge glanced toward us from behind the front desk. I opened the door but did not step inside yet. Do not come back here. Caleb gave a bitter laugh. You're threatening me now? I'm setting a boundary. You used to love me. I used to believe you respected me. His eyes filled with fury. You'll regret this when you realize no one else wants someone so rigid. I held the door open. I would rather be alone than be someone's insurance policy. Then I entered the lobby. Caleb followed before the door could close. The concierge stood immediately. Sir, are you a resident? He's leaving, I said. Caleb looked around the lobby, embarrassed by the attention. I only need 5 minutes with my girlfriend. I am not your girlfriend. The words echoed against the marble floor. The concierge stepped between us. You need to exit the building. Caleb pointed at me. This is unbelievable. After everything I did for you. I looked at the man behind the desk. His name is Caleb Mercer. He does not live here and does not have permission to enter. The concierge nodded. Understood. Caleb's face twisted. You're really doing this? Yes. He backed toward the door. Before leaving, he looked at me with a mixture of anger and disbelief. You'll call me when you calm down. No, Caleb. I held his gaze. I will call the police if you return. The doors closed behind him. For several moments, I stood in the lobby, my hands trembling. The concierge asked whether I was all right. I will be. That night, Caleb left a handwritten note beneath my windshield wiper. It began with an apology. By the final paragraph, he accused me of destroying his life. I photographed it, placed it in a folder, and started recording every unwanted contact. Because something in his eyes had warned me this was not over. The note beneath my windshield was only the beginning. 2 days later, Caleb returned at 6 in the morning. I woke to the sound of someone shouting my name from the street below. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then the voice rose again, raw and furious. Diane, I know you're up there. I moved carefully toward the window and looked down. He stood near the entrance in yesterday's clothes, pacing beneath the awning. The concierge was speaking to him through the locked doors, but Caleb kept pointing toward the upper floors. I did not open the window. I did not call him. I called the front desk. Mr. Mercer is outside, the concierge said before I could explain. He has been told to leave. If he refuses, call the police. There was a brief pause. Understood. Caleb remained for another 10 minutes, shouting that I owed him a conversation. Then he left before the police arrived. That afternoon, I found another note tucked beneath my car door handle. The first half was apologetic. I know I hurt you. I know I said terrible things. I was scared and confused. By the second page, the tone had changed. You abandoned me when I needed you most. You know I don't have anywhere stable to go. You always said you loved me. But love doesn't disappear overnight. The final sentence was underlined twice. You are doing this to punish me. I photographed both pages and added them to the folder on my phone. The folder already contained screenshots, voicemail records, dates, times, and descriptions of every visit. I had learned from therapy that documenting harassment did not make me dramatic. It made me prepared. For the next week, Caleb appeared at random hours. Sometimes he stood across the street and watched the entrance. Sometimes he left flowers with the concierge. Once, he sent a food delivery to my apartment with a note that read, "Our favorite meal. Remember who we were." I refused every delivery. Each attempt carried the same message beneath the apologies. He still believed he had access to me. On Friday night, I met Olivia for dinner. She noticed how often I checked the door. "You're scared," she said. "I'm careful. Those are not the same thing." I stared at my glass. He has never hit me. He doesn't have to hit you for this to be dangerous. The word dangerous made my stomach tighten. I had kept describing Caleb as desperate, heartbroken, unstable. I had avoided the simplest description. He was escalating. Olivia reached across the table. "You need legal protection." The following Monday, I went to the courthouse. I brought printed screenshots, copies of the notes, the voicemail log, the concierge's written incident reports, and photographs of Caleb outside the building. The clerk helped me complete the application. The process felt strangely ordinary. Fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, people quietly waiting with folders containing evidence of lives that had become frightening. When my case was called, I stood before a judge and explained the situation. 3-year relationship, admitted affair, repeated unwanted contact, uninvited appearances at my home, entry into a secured building after being told to leave. The judge reviewed the documents. "Have you clearly told him to stop contacting you?" "Yes." "Has he continued?" "Yes." "Do you believe the behavior may escalate?" I thought of Caleb following me into the lobby. "Yes." The judge granted a temporary restraining order. Caleb was prohibited from contacting me, approaching my home or workplace, or coming within the distance specified by the court. A process server delivered the papers to him at his mother's house. The silence afterward felt miraculous. 1 day passed, then 3, then 10. No calls, no notes, no figure standing beneath the awning. For the first time since leaving him, I slept an entire night without waking to check my phone. I began to believe the order had worked. I bought new curtains for the living room. I returned to running in the mornings. I even booked a week near the coast, finally giving myself the trip I had postponed for Caleb years earlier. My life started moving forward again. Then, on the 11th night, rain swept across the city. I was curled on the sofa, reading while the lights outside blurred against the wet windows. At 9:30, the intercom buzzed. I assumed it was a delivery. "Yes?" The concierge's voice came through. "Ms. Brinker, I'm sorry to disturb you." Something in his tone made me sit upright. "He's here." My hand tightened around the intercom receiver. "Caleb?" "Yes. He appears intoxicated." I informed him of the restraining order, but he refuses to leave. In the background, I heard shouting. Diane, please. His voice cracked through the lobby. I love you. I stood slowly. Call the police. I already have. Do not let him inside. Of course. Then Caleb's voice grew louder. You can hear me. I know you can. The desperation in it no longer moved me. It frightened me. The concierge spoke again. He is demanding to talk to you through the intercom. I considered refusing. Then I realized this could be the final documented warning. Put him through. A burst of static filled the speaker. Then Caleb's breathing. Diane? What are you doing here? I need to see you. You are violating a court order. I don't care about the order. The answer was immediate. Cold. My fear sharpened into clarity. You need to leave before the police arrive. Just let me upstairs. No. I have nowhere else to go. That is not my responsibility. His voice turned pleading. Please, I'm sorry. I know I ruined everything. You need to leave. I love you. No, Caleb. You love what I used to do for you. That isn't true. You called me your backup plan. I was angry. You were honest. For a moment, he said nothing. Then his tone changed. The softness vanished. You were supposed to wait for me. There it was. Not love. Ownership. You were supposed to be there when things went wrong, he continued. That was the whole point. I looked through the rain-streaked window as blue lights appeared at the end of the street. The whole point of what? Of you. The words settled over me with horrifying simplicity. In Caleb's mind, I had never been a partner. I had been emergency shelter, a resource, a place to return after every reckless decision. 2 police cars pulled up outside. I watched officers step into the rain. Caleb, I said calmly. What? You should turn around. He went silent. Then I heard the concierge say, Sir, step away from the door. Caleb began shouting, Diane, tell them this is a misunderstanding. It isn't. Please. An officer's voice cut through the intercom. You are in violation of a protective order. Place your hands where we can see them. Caleb screamed my name once more. Then the connection went dead. I stood at the window as the officers restrained him. He struggled at first, pointing toward the building and arguing. One officer held up a copy of the order. Caleb's shoulders finally dropped. They placed him in the back of the patrol car. The flashing lights painted the wet pavement blue and red. I watched until the vehicle disappeared. The rain continued, steady, cleansing. For the first time, I understood that the restraining order had not destroyed whatever remained between us. Caleb had destroyed it long before. The law had simply recognized that there was nothing left for him to claim. The police kept Caleb overnight. The following morning, an officer called to confirm that he had been charged with violating the temporary restraining order and trespassing on private property. His next court appearance was scheduled for the following week. I thanked the officer and ended the call. Then I stood in the middle of my apartment, listening to the silence. It no longer felt fragile. For months, I had treated peace like something Caleb could break whenever he chose to appear. Every unfamiliar number, every knock, every voice in the hallway had made my body prepare for another invasion. Now, there was a record, a case number, a legal boundary carrying consequences he could no longer dismiss as one of my emotional reactions. The concierge sent me the incident report and a copy of the lobby security footage. In the video, Caleb staggered beneath the awning while rain soaked through his jacket. He pointed toward the building, shouted my name, and repeatedly tried to pull open the locked doors. Seeing it from a distance changed something. That was not a heartbroken boyfriend trying to save a relationship. That was a man refusing to accept that another person had withdrawn consent to be part of his life. At the permanent order hearing, Caleb arrived with his mother. He wore a dark suit and looked exhausted. There was a bruise near his wrist where the handcuffs had tightened. For one brief second, I remembered him before all of this. Laughing in the kitchen, sleeping with one arm across my waist, promising we would build a future together. Then I remembered the anniversary dinner. You're my backup plan. The memory restored my clarity. Caleb's attorney argued that he had been emotionally distressed and intoxicated. He claimed there had been no intention to harm me. My attorney presented the messages, calls, notes, building reports, and security footage. Then the judge asked Caleb why he had returned despite receiving the temporary order. Caleb looked at me before answering. I needed closure. The judge's expression did not change. You had been explicitly told not to contact her. I thought she would understand if she saw me. She had already made her position clear. Caleb lowered his head. The permanent restraining order was granted. He was barred from contacting me, approaching my workplace, entering my building, or coming within the legally specified distance of me and my property. The order would remain in effect for several years. When the hearing ended, I gathered my documents. Caleb's mother approached me near the courthouse exit. She looked older than I remembered. Diane. I stopped. I'm sorry, she said. I had expected accusation. Instead, her eyes filled with shame. I raised him to believe people would always forgive him if he apologized after things went wrong. I did not know how to answer. She looked toward the courtroom. He told us you abandoned him. I left after he admitted he was cheating and called me his backup plan. Her face tightened. He left that part out. They usually do. She nodded slowly. I hope you know I don't blame you. Thank you. He needs help. I agree. But not from you. It was the first time someone from Caleb's world had said it plainly. No, I replied. Not from me. She walked away. I stepped outside into the afternoon sunlight. Olivia was waiting near the courthouse steps. Well? She asked. It's permanent. She hugged me. For the first time since the anniversary dinner, I cried. Not because I missed Caleb. Not because I regretted leaving. The tears came from the release of finally knowing I no longer had to negotiate for my own safety. A month later, I traveled to the coast. I rented a small apartment overlooking the water and worked remotely for 1 week. Each morning, I ran along the shore while the sky turned gold above the ocean. It was the life I had once declined, because Caleb told me his dreams mattered more than mine. One evening, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine. The sea stretched endlessly before me. My phone remained silent. No unknown numbers. No apologies that became insults. No demands disguised as love. Olivia called and asked whether I had heard the latest news. What happened? Caleb lost his job. I stared toward the horizon. Apparently, his repeated absences and the arrest had become too much for his employer. He was living with his mother and attending court-ordered counseling. Jordan had stopped defending him. Several co-workers had learned about the affair with Marissa and how he had treated me. His carefully constructed version of the story had collapsed. What about Marissa? I asked. Moved to another city with someone new. Of course she had. Olivia waited. Do you feel anything? I searched myself honestly. No. Nothing? Relief that he cannot come near me. But beyond that, no. There was no satisfaction in his unemployment. No pleasure in Marissa abandoning him. Consequences had never been the goal. Freedom was. When I returned home, I changed the final reminders of my old life. I donated the wine glasses Caleb had chosen. I replaced the perfume he once bought me. I deleted the photographs I had kept hidden in an archived folder. The last image was from our second anniversary. Caleb stood behind me with his arms wrapped around my waist. We looked happy. Maybe, in that moment, we were. Deleting the photograph did not erase the past. It simply stopped the past from occupying space in my present. Months later, I received a letter through my attorney. Caleb had written it during counseling. The letter contained no request to meet, no demand for forgiveness. He admitted that he had treated my love like an emergency service he could activate whenever another relationship failed. He wrote that calling me his backup plan had revealed more about him than he understood at the time. For once, he accepted responsibility, without asking me to relieve him of it. I read the letter once. Then I placed it in the shredder. His growth was his responsibility. My healing no longer depended on witnessing it. I eventually accepted the remote position I had wanted years earlier. It allowed me to divide my time between the city and the coast. I rebuilt friendships. I continued running. I learned to enjoy evenings alone without interpreting solitude as rejection. Caleb believed reliability made me easy to replace. The truth was that my loyalty had always been valuable. I had simply given it to someone who saw devotion as weakness and forgiveness as guaranteed access. He called me his backup plan because he assumed I would remain available forever. He was wrong. I did not wait for Marissa to reject him. I did not return when he became homeless. I did not rescue him when he begged. I removed myself so completely that coming near me became a legal violation. In the end, Caleb was right about one thing. I had always been dependable, but I finally learned to be dependable to myself. The backup plan did not fail. It chose a different future. And the system he believed would always save him was permanently deleted.